What in Harry Potter did you think was magic but later found out was just British? Treacle thought it was some magical food. To be fair, it might be. I haven't had the opportunity to try it. The school system in general, J.K., just added the word wizarding to O-levels to create O-W-L-S. There's a part in, I think, Order of the Phoenix where the twins make a magic swamp in the castle and the text says that Flitch punts people across it. Apparently punting is a British term for boating. He does not drop kick students. Edit, to all those who want me to know that a punt is a specific type of flat bottom boat used in a swamp or marsh and propelled by a pole, please read the comments and understand you're the 15th person to tell me that. Get it? I did not know this. Everything else in this thread I knew, but I always thought he was drop-kicking students across the hall. Edit, okay. Apparently drop-kicking is not the same as punting anyway. I never was any good at sports ball, sorry guys. Kind of halfway between British and magic, but here goes. I visited Ireland a few years back, and biked around the countryside. I stayed in a few bed and breakfasts, but I mostly camped. I noticed that American and German tourists tended to be pretty conservative in their camping habits, sleeping in small 1 or 2 man tents. British tourists, however, brought enormous multiple-room tents with entire rooms for kitchens and sitting rooms. It was just like the tents in the Goblet of Fire, but obviously without the magic element. It was like I saw the Quidditch World Cup campground scene in an entirely new light. Well, that's just part of British heritage, going to Ireland and setting up like you own the place. Christmas crackers with prizes inside. As an American reading that, it was difficult to understand how they were eating Ritz and getting hats and shit out of them, but, person shrugging, magic. Wait, and hashtag X200B, you guys don't have Christmas crackers? You can stumble upon abandoned castles. I hid Hogwarts by making it look like a dangerously broken down castle. That would never work in the US, everyone would want to explore an abandoned castle. Street mungos. I was in London, walking about, and I saw an office for street mungos. Turns out there's a 50-year-old organization, and they work with the homeless, and I assume do mental health work. Apparently schoolhouses actually exist. Learned this today, actually. 90% of the time it didn't matter outside of sports day. A lot of the foods I had presumed were fantasy foods that I was supposed to guess at the contents or just not care about them. For some of the candies, this is obviously true: acid pops, cockroach clusters, pumpkin pasties, cauldron cakes, etc. I did not know about treacle tart, Yorkshire pudding, stoat sandwiches, which apparently do not fall into the above category, or shepherd's pie, which are all real things. Edit, I'm getting a lot of comments about stoat sandwiches. I'm not saying they're real in the sense that everyone eats them every day. I'm saying they're real in the sense that stoats are animals that exist and you can make sandwiches from their meat, like a rabbit sandwich or a fox stew. Hagrid, being a mountain man, hunts and snares his food, meaning stoat sandwiches are normal for him and very strange to the British children who are used to more traditional meats, like lamb, beef, pork, etc. The word snogging. I started reading Harry Potter when I was pretty young and I thought it was just another crazy word J.K. Rowling came up with. Similar, when Hagrid said he'd brought Harry summit, I thought summit was a kind of cake. I also assumed when he said Voldemort's death was codswallop that codswallop was a spell. Anything from the trolley? I was amazed when I heard that for real on a train in the UK. Also prefects and head boy/girl. The prefects in my school got given fancier ties than the rest of us and got to stand in the halls telling people to correct their uniforms. Hermione's name. I am very British and I did not expect to see some of the answers. I was really happy for a brief section of my childhood because Harry Potter mentioned Yorkshire puddings and my mother would serve them to us for dinner every week. I thought it was this grand magical food that my mother had went out of the way to learn to make. Turns out my parents are just British. When I saw the movies I was so entranced by Diagon Alley and the weirdly shaped buildings. Then I went to London and realized it's not that weird. Diagon Alley was supposedly inspired by a real street in York, UK called Shambles. There's also a HP shop called The Shop that must not be named on that street. Happy Christmas. Being merry was outlawed by the 1879 Amendment to the Unreasonable Excessive Emotional Variation Act, and since then for positivity we've been strictly limited to basic level happiness, and quite frankly have been much better off for it. I never realized that spello tape was a pun on cello tape. My experience at that point had been exclusively with scotch tape or duct tape. Being able to have the children you didn't really like live under the stairs, and he lived under the stairs rent-free when the Dursleys could have charged him £500 a month. When they were driving the car on the left side of the sky. Big hairy dudes stealing kids from people's homes in the middle of the night saying they're going to magic school. Lavitel las manos. Pumpkin juice. Manufactured since 1837 by London Pumpkins and Sons. This is definitely a weird niche thing, not an everyday British thing. Boxing Day, the day after Christmas. You don't have Boxing Day in America? Like other posters, prefects/head boys and girls, houses, a lot of the food. But a lot of British terms tripped me up generally, not that I thought they were magical. For example, when I read about Ron's trainers sticking out from under his robes, I probably reread the sentence about 50 times and genuinely wondered if trainers were some sort of British undergarment. And jumpers. Took me way too long to figure out that was a sweater, even with context. To be fair, I was like 9 years old when I first read Philosopher's Stone and Google was still a relatively new concept. ETA, to confirm, I am Canadian, not American, so the American changes do not apply. Sometimes I forget how different a Mercia is. I'm from New Zealand and now live in Australia, and most of these are common over here too. Head boy is actually a thing. Maybe not magic, but wine gums are mentioned in one of the books. When I lived in the US I had no real idea what they were. Spotted Dick. My local council once tried to rename it to Spotted Richard, and failed. Which at least gave us this glorious headline: UK council forced to swallow dick. https://www.the-register.co UK/2009/09/24/spotted_dick/. I always thought the night bus was a Harry Potter thing until I traveled to London. Turns out, there are night buses that run after hours. Genius play on words. Conversely, I thought writing with quills and ink was something all British students did. Also, being assigned to write essays a certain number of inches, like when Ron would rewrite the last few lines of his papers in super large handwriting so it would make a full 30 inches. It took me an embarrassingly long time to realize that pudding is a term that just means dessert. I was perplexed for years about why Hogwarts students were so pumped to eat pudding day in and day out. Either wearing a uniform like that was something nobody did anymore except in Harry Potter. Live in England now and I still look at the children going to school like they're little Harry Potter cosplayers. As a Brit, reading this is hilarious. The usage of the slang contraction in it, meaning isn't it that one took a while for me to figure out. How he managed to hide under his blanket with torch and not light it on fire before he went to Hogwarts even. Incomprehensible sports. Quidditch is comparatively easy to understand compared to cricket. That's nothing compared to Number Wang or Mornington Crescent. Area names like Hogwarts. We also have Grimsby, Shitterton, Twat, Staines and Skegness as place names. Though having houses and prefects was just a Harry Potter thing until I had a job as French assistant in Scotland. Edit, info I was a French language assistant, meaning I would go to designated schools and do French with children and teenagers. Either vocabulary, speaking exam practice or culture presentations. I don't think this is necessarily British, but I thought witches had some weird hairstyles when it was described as being plaited. Legit thought they had plaits in their hair. Can we reverse the question please? I thought butterbeer was a British thing. Lol. This might sound ridiculous, but the food? I had never heard of black pudding or treacle or tripe. It was weird for me. I figured a 4-poster bed was absolutely somehow magic related. I figured that since in the HP world, paintings could talk and move, I assumed the 4 posters was referring to something like posters that you'd hang on your wall or something. I don't know. Treacle tarts / pudding. 5th grade me was always confused reading the banquet parts. Same here. And I think pudding means something very different to British people than most Americans too. No me, but my cousin, or that car is so cute I wish it was real, even without flight. That's a 60s Ford Anglia, they're real. OMG, I want one right now. Someone would want a Ford Anglia, now that's baffling. Double-decker buses. You had never seen a picture of them? They're rather iconic. Snape. Ejaculated slughorn. If you read Wuthering Heights, I'm pretty sure that's Emily Bronte's favorite verb. Everyone ejaculates their speech. Public transit that actually runs on some coherent schedule. No, that's actually witchcraft. Before April this year, trains that were up to 10 minutes late could officially be classed as on time for statistical purposes. This is so interesting as a British person. I'm loving getting an outside perspective on how British people act. From the inside it's fairly run-of-the-mill that most of these seem unremarkable, and I can't believe how many people haven't tried treacle tart. I mean, I am a kid from the UK and was mind blown when I realized sherbet lemons were real. Took a couple books to figure out about bogies. Seems like everything is like bogies with rolling. Pumpkin spiced things. I live in Finland and we don't really have those there, so I thought it was just a spooky witch thing. Pumpkin spice is an American thing. I've only seen the term used in the past few years. Think it's something Starbucks have been marketing. Don't really eat pumpkins much at all, tbh. What they call pumpkin spice I think is more or less what we'd call mixed spice. On the flip side, my Brit housemate at university thought American yellow school buses only existed on TV. She was shocked to learn they exist and are actually yellow. When Ginny asks her mom if she knows where her jumper was, I thought she was talking about like her training bra or something. Apparently it is a sweater. Who knew? I'd watched the entire Harry Potter movie series before I realized they were British. I am not smart-headed. Well, that got more attention than I expected. The ginger kid with 2 mates. At one point in the 7th book, Xenophilius' hair is described as looking like candy floss. I thought that not only was a magic thing, but I also thought that meant it was straight, you know, like floss. You call it cotton candy. Sugar mice. I thought they were made up wizarding sweets until I saw them in a random, perfectly muggle garden center. I wasn't too thrown by most of it, as I read the books in high school, and I had already read several British authors like C.S. Lewis, Tolkien, Roald Dahl, etc. But along the lines of this post, Turkish Delight from the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I thought it was so appealing to Edmund because it was some mythical food he had only ever heard of. I didn't realize it was a real thing until years later. It was because of that experience that I would read phrases like treacle tart and head boy and think, hee that's probably a real thing. Those crazy Brits. I'm an American and read a lot, so here are some things that are odd or misunderstood by Americans about Harry Potter that aren't because of magic. 1. Sending your kid away to a boarding school before college. I've only ever known one family that did this. 2. Being allowed into a pub/bar before 21 years old. I think the entire US at this point has a minimum drinking age of 21. 3. Rivalries/houses _within __ a school. Most rivalries in the US are between schools and the only divisions in most schools are the years. 4. School/grading system is very different. The OWL level testing used in Harry Potter are play on the British terms, and I don't really think there is an American equivalent. 5. Spellotape is a play on sellotape, British, which is equivalent to Scotch tape, American. 1. Only really rich people do this, like proper rich. Okay, I get it, there are exceptions, you don't have to keep telling me. 2. Yeah, the legal age here is 18, but we like to start younger than that. 3. Usually just share form rooms and sports teams. 4. OWLs equals G GCSEs or O-levels.